and a warm greetings to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our episode number 5 of the Business Synergy Spotlight series as part of our Business Synergy and Growth Movement. I'm Dr. Azeeza, founder of Shine Go Global, Go Global Business School. And I'm so delighted that we have Mr. Shanmuga Retnam with us today. Thank you so much, Mr. Shanmuga, for joining us.
You're most welcome. Delighted to be part of the Go Global Business School initiative.
Yes, thank you so much. And for those of you who are meeting Mr. Shanmuga for the first time, and of course, this program is screened through our LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Mr. Shanmuga Retnam's page as well. So we are saying welcome, and we would love you to stay on and give us your questions if you have any, exciting information that you wish to share based on today's conversation. And today's conversation, as you know, is ASEAN as a global gateway, trade, information, and growth strategies. For those of you who know, Go Global is all about igniting conscious co-creation as well as bridging you to conscious, impactful capital. So today's conversation with Mr. Shanmuga, I have to give you an introduction. I was going to Google him, and he's all over this Google. He's Googleable, as we always say. And what he is right now, being in Vietnam for the last 10 over years, a Singaporean. He's the founding board, Da Nang ASEAN Business Group founding board, and he's also a special advisor to Indochina Metropoli, and also very glad to know that he's a former project director of Prime Minister's Office of Singapore. So it was a great honor and privilege to meet you, sir, in Vietnam in my last visits, and it was really feeling at home when we see a Singaporean, and that too holding a fort in that country. So I feel that this is going to be a very exciting conversation we're going to have today. Just before that, something very personal you would want to tell us. What brought you to go into Vietnam before we start anything else?
Well, I've been asked this question numerous times, and I came to help a friend open a rooftop bar, right? So that's what brought me to Da Nang, in the central of Vietnam. So it's pretty. It's not a very profound answer, but after having served in the Singapore government for a few years, yeah, it was a purpose of to come out and look at a completely new frontier market.
Yeah, and then that could not be a reason enough for staying for 10 years.
Well, slightly more than 10 years. I mean, we were in Da Nang, and then of course we moved to Hanoi. And I say this in tongue in cheek, but my wife has a real corporate job, right? So I'm like the first gentleman. So
Okay.
yeah.
That's beautiful. And it's wonderful that we could connect and have this meaningful conversation, because you are not just about Vietnam, you're about ASEAN. And we know that ASEAN has been is taking and is gonna take, because we have seen it's not just as a region, but it's actually an evolving global trade and investment hub. So how do you see this growing in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, Dr. Azeeza, once again, thank you so much for having me to be part of this conversation. I think this is great that we can connect and share insights. Well, as you know, the global investment landscape, especially 2026 now, we're not even in the first quarter, right? So it's marked by geopolitical complexities and not even seen in decades, right? So
Yes.
Regional conflicts, disruptions to maritime trade routes, the energy market volatility, and the shifting trade alliances. These have changed how international investors access risk, which is really what everyone is talking about today. I was on the conversation prior to this session. I was talking to a fund out of the Indian subcontinent, and we were also discussing about the risk, and of course the premium for this region, for ASEAN, is the what I call jurisdictional stability and regulatory predictability is rising. So to answer your question about 5 to 10 years, to be honest, I can't see beyond 5 years. And
Oh my God.
Southeast Asia and ASEAN obviously is well positioned in this environment.
Yeah, I feel that so strongly. And there is a saying by our late mentor, Mr. Fuller, who was a physician, sorry, visionary mathematician, right?
Right.
And he said that we can't change existing reality. We
Mm.
create a new reality that makes the existing reality obsolete. I feel that the new reality is coming up, and that's the direction I feel a lot of us are gearing towards. And what makes ASEAN unique, do you feel, in this current emerging trends and regions? What
Yeah,
do
I
you think
mean,
makes us
I
unique?
really, I really like this question. It got me thinking. I wanted to always limit it to 3 points, right? So, I think the region's neutrality, right, in major like geopolitical rivalries, we're seeing it. That's one, and then its network of trade agreements, and that's something which we will dive slightly deeper into,
Oh, love that.
and thirdly, the track record in maintaining economic stability. So three uniqueness: the neutrality, the trade agreements, and the maintaining economic stability through these successive shocks. Because as we've seen, we've gone through the pandemic, to trade wars, to energy disruptions, and all of which have made ASEAN the preferred destination for capital seeking growth and security
Yeah,
in equal measure, right?
yeah,
There's also one more point I'd like to mention is that you can observe how the ASEAN leaders, whether they're prime ministers or the leadership team, how they react to problems that concerns member states, right?
yes,
So they huddle quietly and quickly to find a solution to the issue.
yeah.
So in ASEAN, we say we adopt a kampong spirit, which makes
I was just going to think of that.
ASEAN group relevant. Yeah. So
Yes,
that's how we are uniquely positioned. I mean, we are well, I say we have our idiosyncrasies I'll talk about later, but I think we have that unique position, which I think we've been able to manage that tension, and of course, in terms of the political and business climate, right? It's still very favorable. Yeah.
yeah. And I love that the kampong spirit is something that we cannot not speak about. And just for those of you who do not know the word kampong,
Oh,
because we are
yes,
like
yes.
kind of international crowd here, kampong is really a spirit of
Village,
villagers, yeah, coming
village.
together and staying together and taking care of each other. I think that is a very strong
Yeah.
element of kampong spirit. So that being said, I would love to know, in your mind, what are the top three ASEAN country that you feel is most underrated, but really powerful for investment right now?
Wow, that's a question that might get me into trouble. Like, uh, um, well,
You're
I,
going to
I
put
think
Vietnam first, I guess.
uh, I'm glad you brought it up, because I think yeah, I'm going to sort of look at I mean, across 11 countries. I mean, now we've got Timor Leste who's come in as well. Now, Malaysia has quietly become one of ASEAN's standout investment destination. You
Yes,
know,
it has.
and I mean, because of both the political and business climate. I mean, you can say, of course, geographic centrality, being close to both Singapore and Thailand, right? So English speaking workforce,
Mm,
and it has established clusters they've grown very very well in the semiconductor space,
mm,
also in medical devices, and they've also recently you heard about they've revised their I think the second home policy and strategy. So
yes,
they've streamlined the incentive framework, and so this is now it's made a very smart pitch and very consistent draw for the multinational investors.
yeah,
I had the opportunity to interact with the Malaysia delegation when they were in Barcelona. It was led by Minister of Digital and Minister of Economy.
Oh, okay.
And so it was, yeah, there were 25 companies within that group from Malaysia who are pitching, and I was part of that breakfast meeting. So it's clearly you can see why Malaysia has climbed from 34th to 23rd in the IMD World Competitiveness Ranking.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
Now, since I mean, Vietnam is hard to look past
yeah.
uh, since it's blessed with a population demographic dividend. So a term which sociologists like to use. But so in terms of policy, now Vietnam is providing 100% foreign ownership for manufacturing sectors. Uh, they recognize the semiconductor industry, so they've set a target to generate about 50,000 semiconductor engineers by 2030. So
Wow.
a clear signal where the country intends to compete next. Yeah. So for manufacturers and for investors, I think who are seeking a base. So Vietnam combines what I look at cost efficiency and growing capability, if I can simplify it that way. So that's the third country which I need to give mention. Of course, it's currently under sanction. As for Myanmar,
Mm.
the country is, I mean, they just had the elections a few weeks ago, if I understand correctly. So its implications still remain unclear. Yeah, I mean, we're not sure about how the economy will unfold. But unlike many conflict-affected areas, Myanmar still retains a pocket of what I call relative stability and existing industrial capacity that supports scalable investment. Now, the reason
Mm.
why I know this is because I'm a director of Myanmar's largest domestic express company, right? So I'm aware of some of the recent investments, not significant as of this year itself. You're looking at about 60 million US, which covers the following sectors. So they cover, one was it? It was in terms of electric vehicle production, yeah,
Mm.
hotel, of course, in the hospitality tourism sector, construction, uh, natural gas, which they have significant, livestock, agriculture, education, and food production. So these are some sectors where the investment has flown into. So
60 million is quite substantial.
it is. And I mean, Sembawang, I mean, Samcorp actually has upped their investment during this period. So they look at long term. Yeah. So notably, the ASEAN region as a whole is emerging as Doctor, you are in the forefront of technology as a new AI hub, right?
Yeah.
Along with the sharp increase in data center infrastructure, which everyone is pitching for it right now. So, you know, Vietnam,
Yes.
Malaysia, everyone. So, I mean, of course, this would also involve Cambodia and Laos. And Laos, which is known as the battery of ASEAN. And
Yeah.
today Laos is, I mean, um, the Laos Prime Minister. The political stability is there because Mr. Sonoksai Sifadon has been re-elected to be Prime Minister
Yeah.
of Laos. I hosted him in Singapore back several years ago when I was in the
Oh,
government.
nice.
When he was then the mayor of Champasak province. It was a
Mm.
province which had the longest waterfall in Asia, something which we don't know
Wow.
of, right? So yeah, so that's how I would look at these ASEAN countries, which are punching above their weight, have the unique the opportunities for investors to look at, and yeah, so we should look at them in perspective.
Very interesting because two of the companies that we are working with right now has a very huge stake in Laos, with
Okay.
about 20, access to about 28 million agarwood trees that they are reaching out to the world with, including creating wood waste energy project production. It's a Singapore company,
Right.
and they have created a whole range of products around that for uh, out of agarwood as a byproduct, including skincare,
Wow.
perfume, a whole range, a whole lot of stuff. We can see that in tea, even tea, they're going into consumable where it is under wellness and renewable energy dynamics. So that's
Yeah.
a very interesting thing because Laos would never be in people's mind, but it is something that's growing quietly. We can see that. And Myanmar, interestingly, one of our friends, when they told me this, it was interesting because he said that they only engage people to work, but one of his friend in technology sector, but one of his friend actually is doing business from Myanmar and doing very well. So this
Yeah,
is like
yeah,
this is like a unique
precisely.
part. So you're gonna say something.
No, I mean, in the in the domestic fulfillment for e-commerce, our business Royal Express, we recently opened a customer service center in Peninsula Plaza as well. But their
Wow.
domestic business has grown threefold during the sanction.
Yeah.
300 offices across the country, and yeah, so yeah, I think as the famous Chinese saying, in a crisis, also the opportunity as well.
Yes, 危机 we call it. 危险的时候有机会 That's what we say. That's when we look at all these different dynamics, that's why we bring in the conversation around trade and opportunities in trade. Which sector, like we have been speaking about a few sectors in the industries, which sector do you think is experiencing the strongest cross-border trade growth right now?
Well, I think, well, intra-ASEAN trade, I mean, there's always during ASEAN meetings, they talk about this
Mm,
extensively. And intra-ASEAN trade has expanded steadily over the past
mm,
decade, right?
yeah,
As the supply chain deepens and because of digital um, commerce accelerating and cross-border logistics with some companies that operate within across a few countries have become more interconnected.
yeah.
One of which worth a mention is YCH Group from Singapore has opened a super port in the north of Vietnam,
Wow.
intercontainer terminal. So again, they're also building into Laos and into Cambodia, in line with the master plan of ASEAN connectivity to connect that. Now, but having said that, yet despite the progress, intra-regional trade remains at roughly a quarter of ASEAN's total trade. So
Mm,
that's far below levels seen in more integrated economic blocs elsewhere, right? So, I mean, if you're looking at the African market or some other markets, so I think that's where ASEAN needs to look at how we can strengthen ourselves. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. So um, I've been reading up just a few weeks back. You may be aware of this new smart identification. Uh, it's a digital business identity for ASEAN. It's called the UBIN. So the
Okay.
unique business identification number, right? It serves as a ASEAN smart regionally standardized digital ID, or your national business
Oh my
ID.
God, that sounds really exciting.
Now, this is like a foundation. It's like an essential foundation for accelerating cross-border trade and unlocking deeper economic integration. So this is now happening, and I would
Yeah,
urge the readers and of the viewers and the readers to also look into the unique business identification number and see how that could complement your business, and how to improve your cross-border trade within the ASEAN markets.
yeah. I think it really supports us in getting a more smooth flow of connecting with each other, especially when there's a lot of restrictions and you don't know how to go about doing it. These kind of activities create seamlessness in the way that we can work with each other and become more acquainted. But that being said, ASEAN is like a separate animal. Think about it. Like when I go to India, I say we are country of countries, right? India is like country of countries. Within the country, there's so much of languages, so much of diversity, and that itself they are handling on their own. Unlike China, China is one language. At least written is all the same. When it comes to ASEAN, we are really a different language, different cultural differences, and especially for the Asian market or global market to come into ASEAN. What are the some thoughts or advice you can give to people, or even you can say some mistakes they need to avoid?
Well, firstly, get to know your neighbor,
Yes.
right? how they live, how they eat, and what games they play. We are
Mm.
so close to each other, but we are so different, as you said, in
Yeah.
our cultures, in the way, whether we eat with chopsticks or whether we use our fingers or whether we use fork and spoon, that's one. And secondly, get to know the village chief, right? So I told the Indian delegation, the Confederation of Indian Industries, who are coming here next week, who are visiting Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi, and they reached out to me saying that, can you please advise us who to connect with, right? So I told them to make an effort to visit the provinces and meet
Mm.
the local provincial committee and the state-owned enterprise. So I think, Dr. Azeeza, when you were in
Yeah.
Ho Chi Minh, I think you visited a province.
Yes,
Now,
we did.
because meeting the state government, meeting the policy makers make policies. It's at the province, and not only but every province has also what is called a state-owned enterprise. Now, I need to qualify that, because the state-owned enterprise could also be a relation of the chairman or vice chairman, but that becomes the default vehicle to engage. Yeah. So, I mean, in the case of Binzeng in the south, close to Ho Chi Minh City, there's a company called Beckermax. So Beckermax is a state-owned enterprise. So Samcorp, when Samcorp first came into Vietnam to establish the industrial park, their first partner was Beckermax, and there was a lot of tension because, and
Mm.
this was narrated to me by the former group chief executive of Samcorp. Yeah, so they had to. She told the Beckermax was upset with Samcorp on the energy prices.
Okay.
So Mrs. Lo Seng Ling, and she's allowed me to use her name. She's now chairman of NAFA. Told her team to stay in the hotel, and she will meet the chairman of Beckermax and speak to him. Really, what is the issue? So he said, pricing. Your pricing is not market compatible, your energy pricing for
Mm.
the industrial parks. So she gave him a piece of paper and said, tell me, what do you want? So he wrote in a piece of paper, this is the price I want. She said, okay, I agree. He looked at her and said, don't you have to discuss with your board, Temasek and board? She said, no, I will decide. And that trust has grown so intimately that today there are 23 Vietnam Singapore industrial parks, called VSIPs in short, across
Wow.
the country, that generate close to 500,000 jobs. And that has become a success story of how the potential business, because if she had not uh, discussed on a personal level and build that trust. So I say, get to know the village chief, right? That's one. That's one. I mean, a higher, sort of a larger infrastructure kind of venture. The other thing is the sustainability of your local partner is of paramount
Mm.
importance, because I mean, whether it's in Malaysia or Indonesia or Thailand, your the local part, a lot of local partners, they've got the capital, right? They have the capital to co-invest in the business.
Yeah.
So, for instance, a Thai-based investor is now seeking my professional advice to buy out their Vietnam partner, because he's not being able to keep an eye on the ball, on the business, despite having invested a significant capital into the retail business. So that's a very good example, right? Of having the right kind of partner who has the right competency, because many of them have their own portfolio of business. They're into real estate, they're into oil and gas, they're into, they diversified. So they have spread their focus, but as
Yeah.
a partner, you want him to focus. So you got to know uh, the sustainability of your partner, right? Um, since you brought up the point of mistakes, I mean, this may not go down so well with my former colleagues in the Singapore government, but the regional hub strategy Singapore is advocating is great for branding, right? But Singapore is not going to give you immediate access to the ASEAN markets, right?
Mm.
Now, because you have to establish your entity. I mean, I'm involved in the medical. I mean, if you look at the medical device industry, which I'm involved, we do licensing. We have a team of doctors, lawyers, and pharmacists. So these manufacturers often overlook the local licensing requirement of
Yeah.
each ASEAN country, which can take up to 1 year,
Mm.
12 to 18 months to obtain your license before you can service the hospital you want to service, whether it's in Thailand or whether it's in Vietnam or whether it's in Indonesia. The laws change. Vietnam looks towards Malaysia for their standards in terms of medical device licensing. Obviously, Malaysia is a leader in halal, and Vietnam has launched halal, the halal certification, using Malaysia as a benchmark, right?
Mm.
So I think these are some of the what I will call the blind spots you need to look at, right?
Yeah.
So and we could go on talking about this probably another session to
Yeah.
discuss. Uh,
I think there's a
how,
lot of there's so much that we can cover on this kind of a direction, especially with so much of learning experiences we have had for
yeah,
companies that want to enter the market and all of that.
yeah,
So, when we talk about ASEAN as a gateway, one of the reasons why we have taken on a special interest, and I think we spoke about it when we came there, is Sabah, East Malaysia, where there's a access to Indonesia, Philippines, and Brunei, a total of 90 million people. So sometimes when people look at Sabah or Sarawak, it's such a small place, but
mm,
being there as a tourism or a business hub, it does make a difference. And I don't know how many places have this, but when they have these shows or activities and expos, more than 50,000 people come for the events over a period of 5 days or 3 days or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
So because now there is a concentration of people like coming together in groups, and the openness is really picking up really well. I have a question from Fartiba Rahat Khan, one of our partners from Bangladesh. Here's another question about Bangladesh, but I'm going to talk about this first. What is the biggest bottlenecks in intra ASEAN connectivity? Physical, regulatory, or digital?
Well, bottleneck, I think it's well, you got data privacy is being addressed, but I think there are cross border agreements. I'm not an expert in that area, and I think but someone like Dr. Tin, who's the president of
Yeah.
the AIDC club, will be able
Hmm.
to share his like. I mean, I was the former chairman of the Data Driven Marketing Association of Singapore, which and I wrote the white paper for the Data Privacy Act then when
Right.
Singapore was just figuring it out. So I think the uh, you got to look each. Well, I mean, if you're running a regional company, then you got to look at having those cross-border contracts in place. If you're serving a client who's in the healthcare sector, so health data is very sensitive, right? And you got to comply locally as well. And so I think the compliance, mentoring compliance is you pay special attention to the compliance, right? Of course, consumer privacy is still not practiced in many countries, but I think it's always wise and prudent and pragmatic to adopt the best practices in data collection and use of data, right? Of course, but looking at what's Europe and Australia and the US have established these standards,
Mm.
and in the region, every country is looking into different. There's still that. I mean, we talked about the flow of goods and services. So I think the flow of data will really accelerate a lot of these policies
Yeah.
and let businesses operate seamlessly.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And when we talk about money getting into different places, and we did touch on it earlier on, there are real investment opportunities in various areas. So, what are the attractions that you feel for investment into ASEAN and Indochina? How is that going?
Well, this is a hot question, and I'm sure many of your listeners will be very keen to identify opportunities. But I have to be candid, and I do not have the view of the entire region to advise with depth. A few months ago, I had lunch in Ho Chi Minh City with Mr. Wee of Wee Nam Ki, right? Chicken rice sauce,
Mm.
and from Singapore. and ask him the same question, Mr. Wee, why Ho Chi Minh City? Why not Jakarta or Kuala Lumpur? Right. So every market is compelling. Every market, everywhere. I mean, we've got consumer markets, we've got needs for the different industry which are developing. If I look at agriculture and food, right, food products and agriculture commodities are like they are growing. I mean, in terms of intra-regional demand. And
Yeah.
I was just in in a conversation earlier this morning as well. So the demand for fruits, seafood, and rice remaining robust, right? So I think we are quite blessed. We have two countries, Thailand and Vietnam, which are sort of the rice spots of the world or rice spots of Asia, right?
Mm.
Um, so the other sectors, if I mean, because of digital connectivity, and hopefully I also shed some light to the question from the gentleman from Bangladesh, is food delivery is expected to grow, right, to about 22 billion, right?
Wow.
And that's where you can look at the entire food ecosystem. Transport services, I had a delegation from Myanmar, and I asked the gentleman, why are you interested in transport, tourism transport, right? So that's also projected to grow um, across ASEAN. I think 16 to 20%, I was told, thanks to subscription models and cost sharing.
Mm.
Online travel is set to
Yeah.
increase, but although the trip durations, what we are seeing is shortening due to higher costs. The other sector which I don't have much depth, but I want to mention is education, right?
Yeah.
So
Big one.
there are some private equity companies who have from Singapore have invested in some the Ho Chi Minh International School in the south of Vietnam. Of course, healthcare infrastructure,
Oh,
providing
yeah.
for elderly care and specialized rehabilitation. I mean, it's going to be a promising area for some of the emerging markets. Malaysia is taking advantage of it very nicely, and they are getting a significant number of residents from Singapore. So as the region experiences aging in more developed economies, the other economies are in a position to exploit that particular space. We have a small business we have a 100-bed nursing home in Hanoi for the past six
Mm.
years. So I can tell you it's not nowhere near the standard of Sunshine Home in Ang Mo Kio Avenue 5 or some of the other
Mm.
uh, homes that operate in Singapore. But it's an area which the hospitals are beginning to realize. So some of the government and private hospitals are building specialist arms because the public healthcare infrastructure is brimming, and it's about to explode. There are not enough. I think 1,850 hospitals across the country, 100 million population, Vietnam specific. Huh?
Mm.
Thailand is, of course, the leader, in my view, in terms of healthcare infrastructure,
Yeah.
which even Singapore learned from. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the reason for Go Global to be focusing on the travel, tourism, hospitality industry is primarily because of the booming part of local tourism. You know, there's so much of scope to grow when it comes to that. So some of these organizations or countries, based on the current situation, are also looking at investing locally into the tourism sector, because you and I know, like Vietnam or even like what we were speaking to some of the listed companies from Bangladesh, they are looking at the big amount of local travel that's going to boom, where more than 50% of the country actually travels
Mhm.
locally, which is
Yeah.
proven for US and China and India. And during COVID, it was so evident. And right now,
Mhm.
there is so much of scope to work on that. And it is also very important that we are focusing on Sabah, because there's so much of scope for Sabah to be a hub, just like Vietnam. Remember, we talked about certain place, the province outside of Ho Chi Minh, as one of the location that we can look at. So upcoming, but not uh, popular cities can become the next tourism traction for the country and create a lot of waves for the economy. And I feel that that's something that many people are leveraging on to grow as well. So in your mind, when investors are investing, as you meet all these investors network across the region and even globally, What are they considering when they invest in this region in ASEAN?
Well, I think investors tend to favor countries which have administrative efficiency and, of course, providing the incentives, the generous incentives, and and they lower their trade barriers. So I think which is a contentious subject, but I think so. These the regulatory environment incentives is one. So tax holidays, special economic zones, and reducing import duties. So you're seeing that with the Johor Singapore Economic Zone. Um, what I think needs to be talked about extensively, and it's really taking place, is the RCEP. So this will really give ASEAN and the Greater Asia a lot of trade integration. So
Mm.
the proactive use of the regional comprehensive economic partnership, right? And so this is the uh, we've been talking about this extensively over the years, and this will help the ASEAN single window to reduce operational costs. Right? And this was I took this from a Grant Thornton report to find out what is the impact of the RCEP. So so the investors uh, they are looking for such of course, comfort level of working with such, I mean, with such policies. And I
Yeah.
think they should, when they're expanding into a region, I think I've worked with some listed companies from Malaysia who've entered Indonesia, and of course, the structuring of the business, if they go in with a local partner or they go in on their own and build. I can speak for Vietnam because of my experience here. The barriers of entry are very low. So I
Mm.
encourage businesses to invest in the human capital and get them to as either as a representative office you can establish within 24 hours, right? But if you're setting up they've just revised some of the laws and allows you to really establish your presence before you get the license. And it's a
Yeah.
very new law that's just been introduced. So I think Vietnam is really going full steam ahead. I also have to mention the Vietnam International Financial Center. This is the equivalent of DIFC, the Dubai Investment Financial Center. Obviously, this is a very ambitious task of the Vietnamese government to set up Ho Chi Minh City and Da Nang as
Mm.
international financial centers, right? Yes, it's partly aspirational, but I think they are working with, Ho Chi Minh City has signed up with the New York Stock Exchange, so they could use that framework. So for investors, I think looking at some of these regulatory environment, looking at the specific opportunities on certain verticals, and the in many cases, I hear this also in Thailand and also in India, where a lot of these local partners are not looking for capital. They don't need your capital. They want either your technology or your market access, right? To improve their positioning, right? And so then they can combine, and one plus one and equal three. So that
Yeah.
sort of outcome is what they want to achieve.
Yeah, I think that has been a very important direction, because especially when we look at the investors who are now already in the space or wanting to expand into the region, right? Other than, like what you say, into new markets outside of ASEAN, that is also in the space as well. So, but I
Yeah.
want to ask you, when it comes to the success of these ASEAN companies going out, like you mentioned, going into Europe, or even like just now, Pratibaji has a question, like South Asia, for example, in Bangladesh and all these integration. How is that happening, and what do you see is the success rate of such expansion
Well, I
beyond
mean,
you?
yeah, I mean, when you, well, this is a great question, and it got me thinking about a couple of brands that are actively were small brands who then began to be able to regionalize and globalize. So Bread Talk from Singapore, who
Hmm.
moved to China, Gamuda Land from Malaysia, who's
Malaysia.
established their real estate infrastructure. Manila Water from Philippines, who've gone to Chennai. And I think some 12 years ago, they went to Chennai and bought a company. in Chennai. So they have successfully entered into Africa, India, which are complex markets, right? Although they tend to focus on real estate and heavy infrastructure investments. But it's all this require a comprehensive market landscaping, so you know your terrain, yeah, and you got to obviously make regular visits to the market to understand the market. As you said, a country differs in territory, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, Vietnam is three different countries altogether. I mean, the north, the south, the center are completely different, yeah. So you got to understand those nuances. Yeah?
Mm.
You alluded to the point about trade shows and these large platforms. Now, trade shows actually have played a valuable purpose to bring buyers and sellers together. So I think the success of for SMEs. I mean, yesterday a company in Ho Chi Minh is doing beverages, right? And so I've encouraged them to attend the Food Hotel Asia in Singapore. And I know of many companies from India, from Australia who've attended Food Hotel Asia. I'm no consultant. I don't get any incentive from this.
Yeah.
Uh, they went there. They found a farmer found a distributor. Right, there's a company called Love Fruit that make jam here in the south of Vietnam. And Love Fruit, they look very international. Every five-star hotel has small bottles of Love Fruit jam.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were attended Food Hotel Asia. They found a distributor for the Asia Pacific market.
Nice.
Last year, I was at the Halal Expo in Kuala Lumpur, which is the largest halal exhibition in the world, you know, with global representatives from food manufacturers, wellness products, tourism-related services, all targeting at the growing consumer affluence. You know, so I always look at such events because they also help these companies to go out there to then prior to the exhibition, of course, have meetings and look at who they can meet with, right? So to find out what the opportunities are. Yeah.
I was trying to check in here. So that being said, right, when we're doing the expansion and all of that, there is always these cultural challenges that can come in, or regulatory challenges. How do you
Mm.
feel companies should be preparing?
Well, fuzziness in doing business is always there, right? It's a word I learned from my boss in the government. So there's always a lack of clarity in regulations, right? So show respect to your local partner or distributor and win his or her trust. Yeah.
Mm.
So and I think my answer may not be satisfactory to the question, but that's how you should understand because a lot of regulations in India or in Thailand are in local language. You got to interpret it, understand some of the nuances in the
Yes.
language. You know?
Mm.
So and medical devices know there are many parts to it. Yeah, some are not. Some are. They are the different classifications. Likewise with food, right? So I think of course, price sensitivity, very important, and knowing what your price is because not necessarily your product is doing very well in Hong Kong or in Jakarta, it'll necessarily do
Mm.
well in Ho Chi Minh City. No, so it's you got to look at pricing as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And then how do you see the building of trust? How can that happen and credibility building? Because you see, like Singapore has a kind of a brand around it about being trustworthy and all of that. But when we go
Yeah.
to Vietnam or Malaysia or any other countries, of course, we say every country is picking up its game. Transparency is there. So what are some of the ways that we can demonstrate building trust and credibility together?
You know, something which, when I was chairman of a small industry association in Singapore, the first thing I did is actually reach out to my neighbors, the region, and connect. So regional groupings within the private sector or industry specific to address your common challenges. Because so when these associations work and together, and then there is that dissemination of information, right? So and that at industry level, I mean, governments are doing it at government level, right? So building that trust, working with the industry groups. I think one example is the ASEAN Smart City Network, ASEAN, which was established in 2018. Sorry, 2018, and so that was helping the smart city providers in different countries uh, access opportunities using the ASEAN toolbox, right? So,
Mm.
so I think it was a government-led initiative, but it allowed the ecosystem of the private sector to leverage on the government trust and then identify these opportunities, but which they have to then navigate, right? I mean, I always use the Prime Minister Modi's model, the 100 Smart City initiative. Right? It's a brilliant initiative.
Mm.
Every city in India had a private company. Right? Some worked, some didn't work. Some worked with
Yeah, sure.
McKinsey, some worked with EY, but that kind of framework, right? So, so I think the not necessarily a Singapore company will do well in another market or in no more. It doesn't apply anymore that way, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to what's the word they use? You got to think local and act global.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think So that's very much how I would address that challenge, right?
Yeah.
And
One
it's
of
not wrong.
the One of the very important, I love that you mentioned about how we need to connect with chambers to chambers and
Yeah.
organizations, which is a crucial part because then we are able to build the connectivity in a more effective way. And there's a level of alignment, yeah, I call it, in the way that people connect and do business. So then there's a level of accountability, I feel, that people become when they want to do business with each other. One of the areas that we touch on when we go into new countries is look for the investment board or the listed company or stock market where we can see if they are more in the stock market, like especially countries like, we're working with Bangladesh or Vietnam and even Cambodia, where we go to the listed, and even Zambia, one of the
Oh,
as ambassador, we told them, show us all
yeah.
your listed companies. Let us go through them and see what value add that we can give, especially in the travel tourism industry. And from there, we can create more activities within the organization through them, impacting the local tourism industry. So that's one of the angle that we look. But definitely, using the local infrastructure will be great game changer for everyone. So if I would
Yeah.
ask you, based on the SME market, because most of the time going global is thought about for the big guys, right? So and
Yeah.
always the success stories are the big guys. So if we
Yeah.
look at the more small, medium, less than 200 staff and 100 million, less than $100 million companies, what are the three strategic steps that they can take to enter ASEAN market?
Oh, 100 million turnover is not small. That's
Lower,
sizable.
less than 100 million. I mean, that's our
Yeah.
Singapore
Yeah.
definition of SMEs. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, so someone who's, I'm looking at food manufacturing. I see a lot of that food producers. So
Mm.
uh, I just put them. Well, I just used a simple a three-pointer. I mean, it's called PPP, right? So the three steps: looking at pricing,
Yeah.
partnership, and most importantly, patience.
Oh, love that.
Right. So it may not be it may not be mentioned in many business schools,
Yes.
but I think that's the patience because of knowing how to navigate, how to sort of get your competitive advantage in that market. It
Yeah.
might need a completely different packaging, right? A completely different items to be included into your final product offering, right? So if you're selling technology, I think it's relatively easy. You find a partner, and then you on the technology space, I think it's relatively easy. But yeah, I mean, we were working with a small listed company in Australia. It's listed in Australian Stock Exchange. They are a health tech company. They're trying to get into the markets in Asia. So we suggested landscaping. They found a CEO, but they were not able to. um, develop the network to the direct clients. So that's so pricing, partnership, and patience.
Yeah. And we have another word for patient is resilience as well,
Yes, of
because
course.
they need to be like consistently at it, and consistency speaks for itself, like keep
Yeah,
showing up, keep
yeah,
being available, and all
yeah,
of that. And one
yeah.
thing that I would love to add on is the clarity, like what you say, for the not just the pricing but the direction of the business is so important. You don't want to go to a country to I had this company that said, I want to come to Singapore. I said, so what's the plan? They said, let me come and try it out. I said, you don't go to country to try out. You want to like really have a strong desire, intention. Of course, then the planning comes in, but you need to have a clear intention for it and the resilience for it. You can't be going around trying out countries. That will be enough money spending just on trying. You don't know where to settle down. So it has to be strategic in terms of the company's goals and directions, right?
Right.
That's one of the crucial element that I saw keep working for us. Like when we visited India, it's 2010. Nobody was going to India at that time, and especially from Singapore. And it was in the education sector where it's for adult education. We had a lot of learning experiences without the right connections, and it was the hard knock. But thank God, right now we have connection from what we call Kashmir to Kanyakumari, and these are like shareholders, partners, and we also have Indian Chamber for International Business that I represent from Singapore. So establishing network takes time, and that's what you have been doing, Mr. Shanmuga. So all these years of connecting with all these wonderful people in Vietnam and also connecting them in the region, that's been amazing. So let's say we're going to look at the vision for ASEAN's role in shaping the future of global economy. It's a big one right now. So what do you see that as? Because it's very important for us to anchor that at this moment in time.
Well, what I would probably sort of crystallize that is to continue to build on the master plan of the ASEAN connectivity, right? It's a policy that it was is established. Of course, it's from 30,000 feet, it's come down to 30 feet. So build on the master plan of ASEAN connectivity as a strategic horizontal discipline to harmonize those key economic verticals to
Yeah.
achieve a seamlessly and connected single market. So that will be my vision for both for the policymakers, the industry, and the private sector. So I think
Okay.
doing that, then we become an economic force to reckon with, and the other
Yeah.
markets will want to work with us, right? So and that's why what right now Philippines the chairman of ASEAN, and we need more initiatives in the private sector. Organizations like yours should also engage with some of these ASEAN vehicles and entities,
Mm.
and they're very open. So lobby, suggest, gravitate, and recommend establishing other what I call economic verticals under the ASEAN Master Plan of Connectivity. Right, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of work going on right now from many different countries in the private sector. Sorry, that's
I think
my
that's going to be amazing because we're looking at over 680, almost 700 million people in the
mm,
ASEAN sector to be worked on. So if we're thinking of a business plan or a business direction, we should be looking at this group of people and how we can strategize and structure for growth with that number in mind, especially
yes,
working in ASEAN or coming out of ASEAN. Both works. You know that our Go Global Business School have initiated the business synergy and growth movement. It is targeted towards bringing together SMEs in the space of creating new possibilities. When and we are doing these live sessions as part of our education, where we are reaching out to, like right now, this is like since January we have been doing this. More than 10 over sessions have been
right,
run, and we're so glad that you could make time to be in our spotlight series. We have the
most
power
welcome.
break series that happens every week. So
Right,
we are going to be live in Sabah in June as well. So what would
right.
you expect these kind of movements or these kind of activities for SMEs to bring to the SMEs? What do you feel is the best that we can bring to SMEs, and what do you like about our movement? I would love you to share that.
Well, I think your business synergy is that's creating a very powerful ecosystem, right? And it also helps to simplify the regionalization process through active market partnerships. So you're really working with at market level. You're working with both government and private sector, as you mentioned in Sabah and other countries. So, and of course, giving the confidence to SMEs to want to access some of the markets that you have established, whether it's Bangladesh, whether it's Sri Lanka, or whether it's Vietnam. So yeah, I mean, the BCG movement is facilitating and is achieving. I mean, so I think keep on doing what you're doing, and you're doing it so well. So yeah, I applaud what you're putting together, and I think
Thank you.
that's really very
What's your
important.
advice for us? What we need to look out for, more like that? I would love to hear from that on perspective as well.
Uh, well, don't become bureaucratic. Remain market oriented, and of course build some structures, because you need structures to support your initiatives. And it's what we are doing with the Danang ASEAN Business Group. A team of people came together, went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and said, we want to do this. We want to raise the city of Danang visible to ASEAN, but we're not part of the ASEAN structure. But
Mm,
the Department of Foreign Affairs of Danang sort of encouraged us to accelerate this. So the founding board members, I mean, we've got one of my board members is a founder of a unicorn, right? Yeah, and so we've got one in tourism. We've got different diverse group that have come together to try to serve this particular uh, part of the city, to bring the connectivity, and we together collectively we're quite powerful, right?
yeah,
So I think which is what you're doing collectively. It can be very impactful, and I think the outcomes are very important. So what I would ask is you to be able to measure some of your outcomes, and to both document and distill that
yeah.
knowledge, to inspire the entrepreneurs and the businesses to want to uh, emulate the success of some of your partners and clients.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. That was such a refreshing. At first I was like, how, are we able to finish all the, conversation we need to have? I
Yeah.
couldn't do it because
One
there's so
minute.
much of Sorry?
No, it's exactly 1 minute. We just passed the one
Yes,
minute
I
mark.
know, right? Because the fact that we had so many questions and definitely we couldn't cover all, so I had to
Right.
miss some of the questions. But
Right.
thanks so much for your valuable time. I think this is so much of, gem and wisdom that you have shared with us.
Thank
We
you.
always say experiences show up in our space. That means you are an experience yourself. You're not just giving us some tips out of some books, but it is your personal experience, and that matters a lot to all of us. And
Thank
learning
you.
from your experience and your guidance, we look forward to having you more in our space and also adding value to the audience here and across the world as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Shanmuga, for joining us.
Thank you. Happy to share. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and all your messages. You know that we show up on every Thursdays for the Power Break series, and we look forward to having you join. Sign in on the QR code. You get free access to all the activities and updates that we give you on our events and what do you call the movement that is meant to bring you into new heights with your conscious co-creation with people of the world, businesses in the region, as well as accessing impactful capital. So thank you once again. We look forward to seeing you now next session.
Great.
Thank you and bye for now.
Bye.